So the purpose for our workshop tonight is to understand the importance of change in behavior in substance misuse, as we talked about last week, and also to increase our knowledge or heighten awareness around readiness for change and how to support someone during change through our conversation and through our words. So we're going to give you a little scenario this evening, and the scenario goes like this. You notice that your teenage son has been sweating a lot, seems to be more suspicious than normal, and complains of dizziness. You also notice that the cough syrup in the medicine cabinet seems to be disappearing faster than usual. How would you approach your son? Would any of our community members want to offer a comment about this? If not, hopefully by the end of the presentation, you will have a little better idea of how to approach someone. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to show a couple of videos about how to talk to a family member with an addiction. So there's going to be 2 short videos.
Where the disease lies.
We can hear now.
The nature of this disease alters the brain, and it changes the way that the brain perceives life, and it affects our decision-making ability. If you stepped off a curb and you broke your ankle, you would say, get me to the hospital and get me to a doctor, get me to a professional who can x-ray it and set that ankle back right. Why would we treat our brain any differently?
Okay. So this next slide talks about partnering and collaboration. And from here on, Dr. Peterson will be discussing what he has presented. Dr. Peterson?
Good evening. Partnering is best. What does it mean to partner? One of the most important things that we need to understand is that change is not easy, especially easy when you're dealing with a person who has an addiction, substance abuse, opioids, whatever the problem might be. Substance abuse and misuse is a real problem in many parts of the world for many reasons. In fact, the reasons may be as varied as the individuals who are involved in them. The financial cost, loneliness, embarrassment, helplessness one feels, trying to hide or work through a problem that they don't want other people to know about, how the substance affects the individual. In fact, they may actually enjoy it, maybe something they really enjoy. But one of the most important things to understand is that they must understand is that the situation affects not only the person involved in opioid or substance abuse, but also those who are around them in their environment, their loved ones, associates, the family members, all these. So one of the best things we can do is to partner with that individual. We need to form a partnership. Now, how do we go about forming a partnership? Cooperation, partnership, teamwork, and alliance. One of the most important things a person needs to know is that they are not in this thing alone. We are a partner. We are partners. We're going to work through this thing together. We want cooperation. There's an alliance. We form a strong alliance that will help carry them through this problem. Doesn't say it'll be easy, but we will work through it together, and that is very, very important. Sometimes people feel like they have to work through problems alone, and it makes it even more difficult for them. But when they realize that they have support, alliance and teamwork, partnership and cooperation, all denote support. And that is extremely important in working through this. In other words, we collaborate together, and we want to foster and promote collaboration. It actually strengthens the motivation. So what we're really talking about is motivational counseling. It strengthens the motivation. What does it mean to motivate? Motivation is the encouragement of someone to make some adjustments or changes that would be beneficial to them, and perhaps many different ways: mentally, spiritually, socially, physically, their entire life. Helps overcome fears and uncertainties, encourage people to solve problems to themselves. It creates goals, control of your own recovery. One of the things I used to share with my patients is that as a physician, I am not in charge of your health. And that's what a person who's in substance abuse or opioid abuse needs to understand, that they are in charge of their lives. They are in charge of their health. I am only an advisor. So I'm here to help guide you through, to help you through, to assist you, to encourage you, to empower you to take charge of your life. That is extremely important. There's some positive strategies to fostering collaboration. Nagging, there's a tendency for us as humans to nag, just constantly bringing over and over and over again. And that's one of the reasons why many people have problems. Some people believe in tough love. Tough love has its time and place, but this is not one of those. This is a time when you need to help the individual feel that they have support. Tough love may work in another situation, but not here. Not very effective here. One of the most important things you can have in working in a situation like this in a collaborative relationship is honesty. Honesty is essential. You must be honest if you're supporting and working with this individual, and the person must be honest with you. Because one of the most important things to develop is trust and also accountability. So accountability is extremely important in a situation like this. And so as I see a person going through this, I am not responsible for their behavior, but if I see something and don't say something or don't do something to help them get out of the situation, then I'm just as guilty as they are. And one of the things you don't want to do is use tough love to make a person feel guilty. The situation is bad enough already. It's difficult. You want the person to stay alert. They meet knowing that you're not going to nag them, recognize the problem. And I think that's one of the points we brought up last week. One of the most important things is to recognize your problem. And once you recognize the problem or the situation you're in, then let's work toward goals and objectives so we can change the direction of our life and the things that we're doing. And when a person is doing something positive, let them know. Reassure them, I appreciate what you're doing here. And when they're doing something that's not so positive, you don't have to nag them, but just let them know you're accountable, and I'm going to expect you to hold to the promises or commitments that you've made to work towards your goals. That is extremely important. Our attitude is important too. Use your brain and not your pain. Well, many people who get stuck on opioids and drugs like this are in pain initially when they start. And so sometimes the pain can account for some of the reasons that they got involved in this in the very first place. But as they go along, that pain can actually turn, the physical pain can actually turn into a difficult and a different type of pain that's emotional, pain of embarrassment, a financial pain and difficulty, a loss of friendship and relationships, so much so that others around them may become judgmental. But what we don't want to do in a collaborative relationship is become judgmental. We're not here to judge. We're here to promote health, to help the individual work toward what can be done. In other words, we're here to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's what happens oftentimes in tough love. In tough love, it becomes reactive. In other words, we nag the person and blame them for what's happened. But in this case, our purpose is to be proactive, to help them work through, have concise warnings of expectations and accountability, help them to avoid repetitious actions or triggers that will keep them into that situation, follow through on the warnings that are needed. And the person needs to know that we're doing this because they're valued. Each human being, every human being has value. And since we all have value, we want to help them work toward reaching their optimal goals and values in life. Emphasize the positive when it might seem small to you, but when you see a positive step taken, give them compliment them, praise them. And one of the most important things we're going to see toward the end is never give up. Don't ever give up. Keep working with them. When talking with someone with substance abuse, collaborate. Draw out the problem. One of the most important things, and I think DB said this earlier, we need to ask for permission. Do not get into a situation where you actually before you start working with that individual. Ask, even if you see things that are going, that you think that are suspect, things that are not, that are out of the ordinary, ask for permission. Can I talk to you about this? I've seen this and that and that, and you see changes in their behavior that are out of the normal. Can I talk to you about this? Is this a good time for us to talk? And you will find that as you go along, it may or may not be a good time. And of course, we talked about the 6 stages last week about pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, all the various different states. If that person is ready to start making changes, then they will give you permission to talk to you about what you have observed. If not, don't confront them. Don't try to convince them, and don't have a negative attitude or showing that you're superior to them or anything like that. And don't argue with them. Never argue with them. Work with them in a sphere in which they allow you to work with them. You can only go as far as they will allow you to go. If they're ready for making changes and adjustments in their behavior and the use and avoidance of substance abuse and opioids, they will show that, sometimes not so much by words, but by their actions. So that's extremely important. First things first, listening skills. Listening is very important. And I remember as I was growing up, I always thought listening was just hearing words, but I think each of us knows differently. Listening involves more than just hearing. You can hear something 100 times and still not understand what has been said to you. Listening involves hearing as well as action. It also involves participation in what is being said and done there. So listening is very, very important. And one of the slides we're going to see, the next slide is going to show you just how important listening is. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I think we'd be better off if we would do more listening than we would talking. So if we listen more, we'd be better off. Listening is important. This picture shows an example of what is called whole body listening. I worked with a professor from the UK and South Africa who shared with me some very, very important things about this particular picture. If you look at it, you see that the arrows are pointing to almost every aspect of the person. He said to me, this is what we call emotional intelligence. So you're not just only listening, you're not only hearing with your ears, you're listening with your brain, your eyes, your body movement, your ears, your heart, your hands, your back. In other words, the whole person is involved in listening to what is being said and what is being done, what needs to be done. So emotional intelligence, in fact, this particular professor said to me, emotional intelligence can actually be more important than the IQ. IQ may talk about academic intelligence, but emotional intelligence talks about the whole person. It addresses wisdom and understanding. So it's very, very important to understand that whole body listening is extremely important in a situation like this. There are many reasons, there are many ways to listen. Of course, we know that. But I think the picture we just saw there gave us the examples of what a whole body listening really involves. The whole person, very, very, very important. Active listening, how to be a great listener. How do we become a great listener? And that's a gift I think every human being should strive for, to be a good listener. And I think being a good listener helps us to become a good doer of what we really need to do. So it makes us proactive in involvement in helping and assisting individuals and even ourselves in making changes and adjustments in our lives.
Pastor, you can start the video.
Yes.
Many of us don't listen to other people. Instead, we just think and wait for our turn to express our own opinion. Take a step back and look at your colleagues' conversations. It's likely it'll look more like 2 monologues where everyone tells about themselves. The cure for it is active listening. It's a very powerful skill. It brings people closer, builds trust, and helps people to open up. Here are 5 steps on how to do it. 1. Stay focused. Keep natural eye contact, don't judge, and be patient. 2. Really listen. Don't think about your similar experiences and what you should tell next. 3. Allow for periods of silence. Wait till the other person speaks again. 4. From time to time, Repeat the other person's words or paraphrase it back to them. It will reassure that you really listen and encourage them to open up. 5. Understand the emotions behind the words. When you paraphrase, also try to express the other feelings back to them. Active listening is rather difficult and can be more tiring than talking itself. Be prepared for long conversations. On the other hand, you will gain trust and people will simply like to spend time with you. You will also understand them much better. At the beginning, try it with your spouse or a good friend. You'll see how great they feel after talking to you. If you want to learn more about optimal lifestyle, subscribe to our channel below.
And then the next video, please.
We know you're really busy, so we're keeping it quick. It's the manager minute or two. Yeah.
How would you rate yourself as a listener? Below average, average, or above average? If you're like most people, you'll likely rate yourself at average or above average. But here's the secret. Research shows we are not as good of listeners as we think we are. Think about it. How many conversations in your life go like this? We're really excited because we're finally going to Disney World this summer. Oh, Disney World? Yeah, we go there all the time. Magic Kingdom, Epcot. It's a small world, gotta do that. There's Mickey-shaped Rice Krispie treats that are dipped in chocolate. Gosh, let me tell you this really funny time when my husband and I were on Carousel of Progress. Walking down Main Street, we got to meet Mary Poppins, but that wasn't the only thing that happened. So why do we do this? First, it's the way that our brain makes meaning. It takes in what somebody else says and it connects it to something familiar in our experience so we can understand what it is they're talking about. Second, it's a way for us to bond because we're showing that we have familiar experiences. The challenge is when we only tell our stories, we are unintentionally sending them a message that your story doesn't matter. And I know that isn't your intention. But here's the good news. Listening is a muscle that we can build. We spend most of our day listening from a place of what does this mean to me? But if we want to become great listeners, we also need to listen from a place of what does this mean to them? What does this mean to the other person? What are they saying? What's important about what they're saying? Or what are they not saying? And when in doubt, just be chronically curious. Here's your challenge. I want you to choose one person that you can listen to from a place of true curiosity, listening from a place of what are they saying and what does it mean to them? And I promise you, you will hear something new. And remember, play fully brave. Did you find this helpful? Like, subscribe, and share with others. And if you're looking for more leadership tips, sign up for updates at sarahnoelwilson.com and
Reflective listening. What is reflective listening? I think what we just saw is a good bit of what reflective listening is all about. This is interesting because this is not just a rabbit. This is a jackrabbit. If you've ever seen a jackrabbit, they have extremely large ears, as this rabbit does. And that's because they're good listeners and they can hear things from miles away. And they are really alert and focused on what is happening in their environment. Let's talk about reflective listening. There's some steps in reflective listening. Seek confirmation. Listen to what the person says. First of all, we want to start from the very beginning. The first thing you start doing is to ask for permission to discuss the topic at hand. And if the topic has to do with opioids or use of substance, or misuse of substances, or abuse of substances, that's the topic, but you have to get permission. Once you get permission, you're seeking confirmation, have the person tell you why they may be doing what they're doing and how long they're doing. How did they get into it? Listen carefully. The speaker will give you a message. Once you hear that message, determine the meaning of that message, then reflect upon it in your own words and try to put it in your own terms. This is what we call reflective listening. And if you can give that back to the listener, the speaker, the way you got it, almost in exact same words. It may not be in exact same words, but it'll certainly be the concept and the idea that he or she may have expressed to you, then you are a good reflective listener. Then what reflective listening does, it holds the person who's done this, who has been the speaker and who's told you about their situation, accountable. Because now you're saying, I hear what you're saying, now it's time to take some action. Let's move forward. Reflective listening is extremely important. Seek confirmation, listen to the speaker's message, determine the meaning of the message, reflect the message back in your own words, and then let's move forward. Let's be proactive is our next step. Basic reflective listening formulas. It sounds like tentative listening plus feeling about, because when I hear you saying, well, this, if I heard you correctly, these are some terms that you could say, tentatively say. When you seem to be saying, I think I hear you saying, I'm not sure if I follow you. Am I hearing you say this? And this is one way of confirming or affirming what the speaker has actually said. And once you can affirm what the meaning of the person's message is to you, then you can be very proactive in helping them and guiding them, giving them some direction of what they should take in the very next step. These are just some thoughts here, and it's very good information that we can actually use. But even if you approach them from this, everything you say should be a positive thing, should be positive, nothing negative, positive. You want to make sure that what you're saying to them is positive so that they understand that you are in this thing with them. You're cooperating with them. It's a collaboration. It's not here for condemnation, but it's here to support and encourage them in the right path and direction they should be going in. Ask for permission. We said that before. Invite or ask for permission. The first example we started off with this evening was about a young teenager, and teenagers are very, very touchy. They will not share with you information that even is very, very important unless they trust you. So you have to ask them for permission to talk to them about whatever it is you think you see or observe in their actions and behavior. Show respect for the other person. And if they say to you, no, I'm not ready to talk about this now or discuss this with you now, fine. They may be willing to discuss it with someone else, but it's going to be someone that they probably trust. Avoid the feeling of being lectured to. You don't want to lecture to the person because it gives them a feeling that, a feeling that you think you're superior to them. That's not what we're trying to do here. So show respect for the other person, avoid the feeling of being lectured to. You're not trying to lecture to them about anything. It says to them that you think you're an expert in almost everything. And it's not so much that you're an expert, you're trying to find out what's happening with them. So avoid using those terminologies and even that particular approach. This is a motivational thing. And so it's something that we want to work in together in a collaborative teamwork effort. I've noticed here's a good example. I've noticed that you've been missing work or gotten into trouble lately, other problem. Is it all right if we talk about your pain or alcohol or whatever the problem is? That's one of the things that's one approach you can actually use. Is now a good time for us to discuss this? If it's not, what's a good time? You give me a good time for us to actually talk about this particular situation. And what we're trying to do is to keep the situation from going out of control, and so getting worse, I should say. So it's important that you actually ask for permission and talk to them only by invitation. If they say no for that particular time, they're not saying no permanently. They're probably just saying no for this period of time. And you can, sometimes the way we ask a question, a way we make a statement can determine whether or not the person is willing to open up to us. So be careful with your words, be cautious in your voice tone and how you make your statements, and you'll find you have a cooperation from the individual. Once permission is granted, explore the person's reasons for substance use. Now that's very, very important. And as you will probably find that excuse me, people have many reasons for how they got into substance use or substance abuse, or use of opioids. And oftentimes it starts off favorably, but after a period of time, it can get out of control. But you must remember to ask for permission, okay? Extremely important. I can't emphasize that enough. Why people misuse substances. Here are various different reasons why, pros and cons. People usually, because it actually feels good. Some people actually enjoy using opioids. They look forward to time alone. Some of the cons can't. What are some aspects of you? What is it about you? All kinds of examples of reasons why people do not need to or don't like taking opioids. Ask about a time before the person's opioid addiction. How were things better or different then? And they will tell you basically that, and actually when they first got started, most people do not see themselves as becoming addicted, but actually because of the way the opioids work on the brain, people can actually lose control of that part of the brain, the limbic system, which actually controls your motivation. And so things get out of control, can go out of control very easily. Same thing happens when a person is on alcohol or tobacco, because all of these are chemical substances. This is a good quote, and DB shared this with me. This is a good way of being, this is a quote by Dr. William Miller, who's the founder of motivational interviewing. I'll just give you a little brief, a few seconds to read this for yourself. If you think about it, it's very impressive what he's actually saying here. Here's another quote. For some people, sobriety is an event, cold turkey. For most people, sobriety is a work of a lifetime. Pace yourself. Very, very important statements. Think carefully about what he's saying here. Now, I like to summarize. Words matter when assisting family members and friends in behavioral change. Collaboration fosters cooperation, alliance, and teamwork. Help this person to know that he or she can do this. This is doable. You can do this. You have a support system. We're here to encourage, work as a team, to collaborate. And we're asking, first of all, for permission to work through this problem, situation together, whether it's a family member, or a friend, or associate. Respect their privacy, respect them, and we're here to empower the individual. Become knowledgeable about the substance misuse that the person is involved or engaged in. It doesn't have to be opioids. It could be tobacco, or it could be alcohol. But you want to get involved. You want to become as knowledgeable as possible about that particular substance. Be curious and explore with a family member or friend about that story. Try to find out as much as you can about this particular individual you're trying to work with, without being the point of being what I call nosy. You're not there just to find out personal information. You're trying to find out a way that you can help this person make changes and adjustments in their life. You may not know if that person from a different perspective. So you need to know the different perspective of an individual. Recovery is not an individual matter. It's I would say not even just a family matter. It's a community matter. So it involves the family, the individual, associates, colleagues. It's a community matter, and we're here to try to work through that to help as much as we possibly can.